I'm Michael Herman, a principal at KPMG and leader of our U.S. Salesforce practice. In the next hour, we're going to talk about the hot topic of building customer and client-centric relationships, the enabling technologies helping financial services organizations create these relationships, and some of the challenges they face. Joining me for this discussion is Rohit Manna, Senior Vice President of the Salesforce Industry Advisor Team for Financial Services and a good friend. Welcome, Rohit. Rohit, tell us a little bit about your role and your background.
First, Michael, thanks for having me on here. I'm really looking forward to this great experience with you guys. So here's my story. Been at Salesforce for 10 years. I've been part of our financial services business for that entire time. And then this year, I've taken over responsibility for all of our industries. And like you said, it's a new group that we formed called our Industry Advisor Team.
That's awesome, Rohit. Really excited to see where that's going to go for Salesforce. I'm sure great things. And a little later in our session today, we'll be joined by an exciting panel of customer experience leaders from amazing organizations, USAA, Edward Jones, PayPal, and Humata. And these executives are going to share how they've leveraged, how they've really jumped into that digital transformation to build these client-first cultures in today's reality. But first, let's take a look at a key enabling technology for client-centric relationships, CRM. And for many of you, CRM really is not a new concept. It's been around for a while, but it's evolved significantly over several decades. And today we're seeing what we consider the third wave of CRM transformation, which really is a focus on ROI of these rich, robust platforms, right, driven by usable insights. And here's a quick video that explains what third wave delivers.
Customer Relationship Management, or CRM, is not new. From desktop card files to local spreadsheets to enterprise-wide CRM applications, professionals have been tracking customer relationships for many years. CRM technology has evolved in waves over the past several decades. The first wave started with custom mainframe solutions. Based in marketing and relationship tracking software, these customer data repositories were difficult to maintain. In the second wave, CRM technology moved to the cloud. They centralized data, improved the user experience, and provided a one-time cost benefit. However, companies generally missed the opportunity for long-term transformation. Now, in the third wave, CRM transformation has a renewed focus on delivering value and usable insights. Achieving better ROI requires companies to be more deliberate and focused on the continuous loop of CRM usage and strategic insights. Capturing maximum value from your CRM platform starts with driving user adoption across your organization. CRM platforms should serve the entire customer lifecycle to reap the benefits. Ultimately, a cohesive transformation plan enabled by CRM will serve your company's end users, improve customer insights, and deliver a better customer experience. So what's your plan to achieve long-term benefits from your CRM transformation? Don't just go with the flow. Let KPMG help you ride the third wave of CRM technology and focus on maximizing your technology return on investment.
So the third wave is really all about that platform ROI, capturing value around those customer experiences, right? And that really is driven out of insights, which create these amazing experiences. Rohit, what do you think and what are you seeing around the third wave for financial services organizations? What does it mean for them?
It's a great question, Michael. And I think the way you frame the waves is just spot on, because at the end of the day, it comes down to value. And it's not just value about internal business cases and what it means to the institution. It's also about value to all of us as potential customers of the insurance agent or of the bank. And we're seeing just a wholesale change across the landscape in FinServ right now, where there's so many firms that are rethinking how they're going to market, much less about specific products, specific line of businesses, and we're going to differentiate that way. And it's more about how do we service the customer holistically as a financial institution. And once you start crossing that chasm, the value equation just seems natural, right? That, hey, we need to start thinking about Michael as a customer across the entire bank, not just as him as a wealth client or as a client on our mortgage side. We need to service him the same way. We need to market to him the same way. We need to think of him, as an entire household, not just as an individual. So there's so many things we could talk about. To me, it's so much about value in that third wave, and start thinking about customer experience, less about product and line of business.
Those are great examples, Rohit. And another amazing one I've seen is a commercial bank and a retail bank thinking about the value that their customers bring to each other and how that interlock works. So awesome things ahead for companies that can really focus on value and leverage platforms to make them come to life. Next question I have for you, Rohit, is, given, what we've identified as that third wave and some of the really thoughtful things that you said, what are some of the biggest challenges you see for financial services organizations as they move and migrate into the third wave or capturing that third wave?
Yeah, I think the first is time, that you need to go fast. And this is one of those times that you can't do multi-year strategies and multi-year plans to get something live. The reason for that is customers have different expectations now. I think we've talked about this forever. But the reality is that that's kind of just the point. We got to go fast. And then the second is internal orthodoxies. It's easy for us to just talk about change the way you're going to market, think less about product, think more about the customer. But these are pretty big changes internally in an organization. And I know we're going to talk a bit about this, but easy things that I think of there to help is make multiple lines of business part of the process as you look to make a big cultural change, a way you think about changing going to market. Don't just do it on the distribution side. Bring the regulatory team in, bring the compliance team in, bring in the product specialist team in. Make sure the marketing team is part of it. So I think that's the immediate thing that jumps out to me that, is, I wouldn't say the elephant in the room, but probably is one of the most important things to lay out very early on when you're thinking about one of these changes.
Great. Thanks, Rohit. It makes a ton of sense. And it's interesting. One of the things that we typically find is even for companies that actually go and take that approach, that really thoughtful, connected approach, at the end of the day, if the end users don't buy into the program, it could be or can be all for naught. And so we see, user adoption really being kind of the critical driver to kind of, make this all happen in real time for organizations. What are some of the things that, you're seeing companies can do, to drive adoption, of these solutions, that are going to help people at the end of the day do their job better and serve their clients better?
Yeah, adoption's relevant, not just in this one, it's on any kind of transformation you're doing internally. And I kind of think of a few key areas. The first would be, how are we making it easier for the internal employee? So how are we removing friction? So not always just about operational efficiency, but maybe how are we just making access to more data more efficient? So an example to me there is if I'm a relationship manager, I probably want to know if I'm speaking to a client that's got a servicing issue. So let's make sure there's a connection from sales or service. I probably want to know if someone's responded well to a marketing campaign. So I want to make sure there's a connection from sales or service to marketing. So how do you just make experiences more efficient for the relationship manager or the service person so they're just way more equipped to have a better conversation? The second is the right level of sponsorship. I think we both see this quite often. Projects, yes, you need a ton of groundswell, which is incredibly important, but we're not just talking about a minor little tweak in one line of business here. We're talking about something in an enterprise level that can have massive, massive value. So it's important that there's the right leadership or sponsorship from the executive team down, that executive team is using the tool at the same time. So it's not just the RMs using it, but the leaders are using it, the second line leaders, the third line leaders are using it as well. And the last that we've talked a bit about here is what does it mean to the end customer? I think adoption is driven there as well, that if the customer's seeing value in a new type of experience, when the RM's interacting with them and saying, wow, you've got a better understanding of who I am, what my needs are, inherently you're going to get more adoption because the users will use it more. So I kind of think of those three main buckets, and there's tons more, but high level, those are the three big ones in me.
Totally agree, Rohit. Again, really on point. What we also see on top of that is at the end of the day, for the end user, they have to know how this tool, this platform is going to help them win. When they know how they're going to win and it aligns with their performance management, great things can happen. last question is, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask it, given everything that's going on in society today, we've really seen customers change how they want to interact or change how they have to interact with financial services organizations. How have you seen that impact how clients are thinking about building these really deep client customer-centric relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I know you and I have spoken about this. COVID has only accelerated this, or the pandemic as an overall, the last 12 months have made firms realize that you've got a great role you can play in society as a bank or an insurer because you're there at the time of need that one of your customers has, or you could help them out when they need some help. But what it means is you need to do things that might not be as comfortable, like roll out some new capabilities that might not have gone through your traditional deployment cycle. Ask for feedback from customers, like novel idea, right? If we're going to roll out some new capabilities, let's get feedback from customers and make sure it's not perfect from release one, but we can do 10 releases in the next 2 days and make it better and better and better till we get it perfect. We've seen this from so many clients. I know you've seen this with clients of how many banks have just turned on chatbot capabilities because people couldn't go to a branch to ask someone, or they sat on a 3-hour long queue, trying to get to a contact center. And over a weekend, a bank rolled out chatbots. And now we're saying, wow, this is a whole new way for us to engage with customers. And we don't have to make it perfect from release one. We can do multiple iterations so quickly. So I just think there's so many lessons learned that we've seen from in financial services level the last year. My piece of advice there is just be comfortable doing things you traditionally maybe not have done in the past, knowing that if you get something out in front of a customer and it's not perfect, it's all right, but just make sure you get feedback from them.
Great. Thanks, Rohit. Great insights, and always good chatting with you on these topics. I always enjoy the dialogue. And this was amazing. So, we talked about how this, third wave of CRM is focused on value, and really to focus on value, one of those key anchors that you're going to need as an organization is really around customer experience, and kind of in making sure that you embed that in with kind of your total, I would say, approach towards enabling, digitally as an organization. So now we're going to turn it over to our esteemed panel of CX executives from Edwin Jones, USAA, PayPal, and Humana, and they're going to highlight how digital transformation is enabling them to really build a customer-first transition. Over to you, Julio.
Thank you for those words and that introduction. We really appreciate it. I'm really have the honor today to be talking to 4 executives from 4 different companies who are leaders in customer experience. And so to kick off the session today, I'm just going to ask each of them to introduce themselves. Brett, can you just talk a little bit about who you are and your background?
Yeah, hi, I'm Brett Bearfield. I lead the business improvement area for Humana's Healthcare Services Division. I've been with the company over 14 years and have been really helping lead our evolution into what we call the enterprise clinical operating model, and really thinking through the member experience and the transactional nature of healthcare and how we can bridge those gaps and create a more seamless journey for those we serve.
Fantastic, Brett. Thanks for joining us today. And Guru, could you introduce yourself, please?
Thanks, Julio. Great pleasure to be here, and thanks to KPMG for the opportunity. Guru Bhatt, I am the VP of the Customer Success Platform at PayPal. In addition, I also lead PayPal in India, the technology centers. We have 3 of them, Bangalore, Chennai, and Hyderabad. In my role as the VP of Customer Success Platforms, I lead a product and engineering team that is tasked with building the customer support and customer success infrastructure for PayPal, all the next generation AI and ML technology to serve our customers when they have issues with using PayPal. That's my responsibility. So it's a very active area because we've got about 375 million customers around the world, over 200 markets. So I lead a pretty active life with the rest of my team. Very happy to be here.
Okay, perfect. So Ilan, would love to hear a little bit about your background and your company.
So Ilan Davidovich, I lead client experience at Edward Jones. I've been with Edward Jones, a wealth management firm in the United States and North America for the last 2 years. Part of my role is leading the client experience strategy, content, and channel teams to make sure that we're designing and developing and executing on the future state client experience. We do that at many different altitudes, both with product teams that are focused on specific innovation for the branches and for the advisors. We do that with the portfolio teams, and we do that at the highest level for the client journey and the branch journey. In 2 years, we've spent a lot of time focused on what the future state of the client experience is going to be and how to design and develop and execute that in the best way possible. Happy to be here to talk about it today. Tony?
Hi, thanks everybody for the panel today. I'm Tony Wells. I'm the Chief Brand Officer at USAA. We're a full financial services brand that is there mainly to serve the military community. In my role as Chief Brand Officer, I help run a team that includes marketing, corporate communications, corporate responsibility, military affairs, and our Chief of Staff function. So we're here to serve over 13 million members who are in the military or dependents of it. And I've been with the company 3.5 years and a USAA member for 35.
Well, thank you, Tony, for joining us. And I have to call out that because we're talking about customer experience and KPMG does a customer experience excellence study every year, you guys were the #1 company in that study during 2020. So congratulations for that honor. By way of introduction, my name is Julio Hernandez, and I'm the global lead and U.S. lead for our customer advisory practice and responsible for driving our efforts around customer experience. And customer experience is viewed as really a top priority for companies. And we hear that in our CEO survey. We read about that in the press, in the business press, and we hear from you when we talk to you. So with that as context, I'd love to understand where customer experience sits on your priority list within your business. And maybe, Guru, we can start with you. Where does customer experience fit in at PayPal?
So thanks, Julio. It's a great question, and I'll probably preface my remarks by giving you a little bit of context on why customer experience is important to us, and then I can dig into exactly where it sits in terms of our list of priorities, right? So PayPal, pretty much everybody, I think, on this call, as well as your listeners, probably know the brand and hopefully also use the brand and are happy with the brand. We're a payments behemoth. We like to think of ourselves as the original digital payments company. Like I said during the introduction, in over 200 markets, well over 350 million customers around the world, both sellers as well as buyers. One of the important aspects in the payments business, given that it's primarily when digital payments are used, especially when people are online, the element of trust between all the parties is an amorphous entity that is extremely important, but it falls on the digital payments provider to really insert that trust into the equation. And I argue that in the variety of factors that go into making a great company great, trust is the secret ingredient that truly lets a company stand apart in terms of making sure that customers get what they want, what they need, when they need it, and in the way that they need it. There are several things that go into building trust with customers, and customer experience is probably the most tangible element that goes into building this trust. So we like to think of ourselves at PayPal as a customer-obsessed company, and nothing speaks customer obsession more tangibly to a customer than making sure that the experience is a wonderful one. So there are different kinds of experiences. There are experiences when you're in the middle of using the product, which has to be great. Obviously, it has to be simple, it has to be delightful, it has to be secure. And these are all the qualities we truly pride ourselves on. But more importantly, as a trust building exercise, the customer experience has to be delightful even when you have an issue with the product.
Right.
And that's where I think the customer obsession truly shines, right? When people are unhappy with your product or they've faced an issue with using your product, if they come across an experience that is delightful, that is empathetic, that is trust building, then their perception of the company also is extremely positive. It's likely to engender loyalty in them and likely to make them customers in the long run who are really, really happy to be associated with the company. So I'd say that in the list of priorities, customer experience is assuredly #1 for PayPal.
Well, and as you mentioned, just demonstrating it, building that trust in the experience, building that trust in the recovery, walking the talk, if you will, on a consistent basis to substantiate the brand. So, Ilan, how are you guys thinking about customer experience and the importance of it in your business?
Yeah, thanks, Julio. And I think Guru mentioned it really well. A client experience or customer experience is not just about great experiences at the height of using your product. It's about every interaction and how those interactions are strung together across the journey to create positive perception, where you have that opportunity to reduce negative perception and ultimately to lead to outcomes. So when we think about client experience, we think about the connection between the experience our clients have and the outcomes that we're driving towards. As with any large organization that has a long history, we've been around for 99 years. Inertia is a powerful determinant of initiatives. We're in the process of changing and transforming, and client experience is at the tip of that spear, both in how we approach firm-wide programs that bring new products and new services and experiences to life, but in also how we come together across the organization to prioritize the experiences that we think will create the best perception and the best potential outcomes.
So Tony, in your description of your role, you had a mouthful there, but you represent brand and experience. I'm curious, with a company and an institution as strong as yours has been historically around delivering member experience, how do you guys think about translating the brand into the experience, and how do you drive the alignment of all of your associates to deliver on behalf of your members?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the things that we do at the top of the house is set our member experience. So we also call them members, just like Brett and Humana. We set that on a scorecard that we are measured on an annual, both short and long term. So we have the whole organization focused on really three dimensions. One, member satisfaction around channels and experiences. So we actually measure specific experience. Then we measure overall satisfaction. And then lastly, we measure net promoter score. So it's three dimensions that really allow us to stay in tune with what our members are seeing and how we're delivering our service. I would also say that we have a very, very strong culture. Being member owned allows us to be in it for the long term. And so when an employee first comes to USAA, from the first orientation, which for us is a lot longer than many companies, it lasts days instead of one or 2 hours. And then we put that and infuse it in our culture in terms of mission moments, which kick off all of our meetings around making sure we're bringing the member into our decision making, to how we conduct ourselves with military acumen to make sure we stay human and empathetic in our delivery of experience. Sometimes when you're a digital brand, it's really hard to express empathy. And so we're working really hard to do that throughout. But it's really, like I said, that top of the house alignment, and then all the way through all the service delivery across our three major lines of business. And we break those down into discrete experiences that we have experience owners who are there to make sure that is without friction, and we deliver a best-in-class service to our members.
Fantastic. Well, I love that term, mission moments, and I also liked your comment about how do you express empathy in a digital world. And so, we're living right now, many times we would all be on stage together in comfy chairs, and right now we're all kind of calling in from our office, our living room, or some version of our home. I'm just kind of curious, with the context of the COVID crisis and the last 10 months we've been in, how has that setting and the need for a different engagement model, if you will, influenced your customer experience initiatives, efforts, and prioritization? And so maybe we can start with you, Ilan, and to talk a little bit about how you're doing that from your vantage.
Yeah, it's a great question. We went, it's almost a year now, March 5th, whatever it was, of 2020. We're inching towards that here in 2021. I remember the days clearly almost a year ago when we had to take 19,500 branches across North America, where we're lucky enough to be in 70% of every zip code across North America. So we are in the communities in which we serve. Our clients expect us to be there for them, and nothing changed just because there was a very serious and broad-reaching pandemic. We took our 99-year-old firm and we're able to focus on a number of experience initiatives similar to the way Tony described it. We have experience owners that are focused on continuous innovation and making those experiences more mature and better based on what we call the client-centered design process. So based on speaking with over 7,000 clients last year and prioritizing what we call the jobs to be done of the client. At each moment of their journey with us, they're trying to accomplish something, find an advisor, or transfer documents to us, or learn more about their accounts, or connect with a part of the firm. So we went through the process of prioritizing some initiatives that we knew that we could deliver within days or weeks or in a couple of months. We did so with a few particular features, one called Starting Point, a digital discovery tool which helps our clients share pertinent information in a virtual environment. Another called Edward Jones Match, which helps millions of clients who want to learn more about our firm match with either advisors or other professionals within the organization. And then the final one I'll mention is called My Priorities. My Priorities, when we talk to clients, we're all in the empathy business, whether it's healthcare or USAA, even PayPal. Our clients, our customers think of us as being embedded in, they choose our brands, they choose our products and our services and our experiences based on our relevance and our ability to deliver that within the context of their lives. For us, deep empathy is about knowing who our clients are and helping them to go through that process. Financial advice is about helping people understand what their values are, the prioritization of those values, translating those into goals, which then become a financial plan. It sounds complex, but we turned it into a fun process that takes about 8 minutes. And we've had millions of our clients and many prospective clients go through that process, which has been a great virtual empathy building process for our firm.
So if you think about it, right, so the question initially was just, given the COVID crisis and all that came with it, especially just the need for physical distancing, not going into physical properties with your branch network, I think you said of almost 9,000, right? That changed overnight. But on top of that, right, you guys were inundated probably with a massive dip in the market in March, which probably made that whole channel issue become really complicated, right? So you guys navigated thinking about, I like the client design process, pivoting, thinking about which digital channels to use. Brett, you live in a very different world, but people needed to come to see you because of what you guys do. How did you guys make the pivot to digital and maybe reprioritize some efforts there?
Yeah, so I'd say for us, it starts with a couple of things. Number one is the health and well-being of our associates, members, and patients. And with that in mind, the second thing is really around access. And so you can think about this playing out in maybe 3 different dimensions for us. Number one, as healthcare systems were preparing and being overwhelmed, we took steps to think about lessening the burden on authorization requirements as well as co-pays for our members as a way of improving access. Number two, we have a pharmacy distribution business and looked at our capability to get prescriptions directly to members' homes who were, not venturing out into public and were practicing social distancing guidelines. Number three is really we saw the rise of telemedicine, virtual care, and home care. And so as we think about our care delivery and home care assets, that kind of has been through a transition as we've seen hotspots roll through the country. And we saw significant increases in members accessing the healthcare system through digital channels.
Right.
As well, we saw a number of patients and members accessing healthcare through home care, as opposed to going to see your traditional PCP or care provider. So the shifts for us were meaningful. Again, it's about access, and ultimately our goal is to ensure that in the midst of this pandemic, again, our members, associates, and patients continue to have access to the care they need, and ultimately coming up with creative solutions through either virtual or home care options to ensure that access is available.
What I really love about what you shared and what Alon shared is you really kind of wanted to meet your member, your customer, where they were at in the circumstance, and you both made pivots to it, thinking about what the best place to engage was. This whole massive shift, acceleration of digital. I mean, digital's been here, but people, the number of interactions, channels, the uptake in the digital channels has increased dramatically. How has PayPal adapted? Because I'm sure the volumes that were hitting your business were much higher than one would expect initially when we went into this.
That's right, Julio. And, I love the way Ilan talked about empathy, right? The problem for PayPal has always been, and the opportunity for PayPal has always been demonstrating empathy at scale in practically every realm of our customer experience. So we are a digital first company. And, in that sense, I would say that a bulk of our existence has been spent getting ready for an event like this, right? So we have, from a technology perspective, I think we had all the ducks lined up in the right places so that when COVID-19 hit and when people's innate propensity to eschew all forms of physical contact in favor of digital ones took hold, payments was one place where a lot of people simply did not want to touch paper money anymore. They wanted to experience digital payments, and it was the right time for us. So you're right, Julio. We had the transaction volumes go through the roof in the initial part of the pandemic, lasting right on through the year. We saw robust growth in the number of new people joining our platforms, as well as the engagement within our platforms in terms of people using our products very heavily for a variety of use cases. So looking at the need that arose at the beginning of the year, we had to make several pivots in terms of our customer experience, specifically tailored towards COVID-19 and the needs that it imposed on us. For one, the fact that a lot of people going into stores would not want to use a credit card PIN pad to even type a PIN or touch anything, right? Any surface. So we ended up very rapidly developing QR code payment capabilities within our products and rolling it out to 28 different markets in a matter of literally 5 to 6 weeks after the pandemic began, which was a tremendous push on the part of the company, and a lot of people worked on it around the world at PayPal to make it happen. And that particular solution continues to gain tremendous traction. Of course, in parts of the world, like in Asia, China, and India in particular, these are not new, right? QR code-based payments are, I would say, de rigueur. It's just something that people are very used to. But for a lot of the other places in the world, this was a new one. And it was driven by the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of accelerating this roadmap into existence. The other one was in the US, the Paycheck Protection Program. We were privileged to be one of the companies that could offer these to our customers, and the Paycheck Protection Program is one that we had to accelerate development on. We dispersed nearly $2 billion in loans through that program, and in record time again. What we also saw, very hearteningly so, is there was an outpouring of demand for solutions aimed at giving. And a lot of people wanted to donate money during this time, and PayPal has always been a very strong champion of these causes. So we had to accelerate several capabilities within that realm as well. Across the board, you've got things like pay in 4, credit, installment-based payments, etc., that we've had to accelerate during this time, given the need that people had. So right. All I'll say is that we've been privileged to redesign our customer experiences during this time.
It's great, but if I listen to and take a couple of the points that each of you make, there's a couple of things that boil up to the top, and I want to come to you on this question, Tony. But one is you all are consistently listening, right? Listening to your customers, right? Understanding the environment, right? The second thing is you all mentioned the word empathy, right? And the way we look at customer experience, empathy is actually at the top of the customer experience 6 pillars, because it really is that thing that really helps you connect with people. But if your processes are broken and it takes a lot of time, being empathetic about it but not solving that doesn't help, right? So, but you guys talk about empathy, and then all of you talked about meeting your customers where they are. But Tony, you said something earlier. I want to come back to that, and you said it can be challenging to demonstrate empathy in a digital world, in a digital engagement channel. How are you showing those proof points, those signals, if you will, that show somebody, even if they're being greeted by or directed by a bot or they're online, how do you try to manifest that empathy?
Yeah, I think a couple things. It's being attuned to the member's needs without being creepy. So, for example, if you're using our banking mobile app and you're in a market outside of the one that's your home market, we will engage you to say, hey, are you traveling? Do you want to put specific criteria on your credit card usage? Or just simply when you call in to our call center, being a military-focused organization, we will greet you by your rank also, just out of respect. So sometimes it's the little things, but I think to go back to something you said, this idea of staying in touch and listening and engaged with your member. As soon as COVID dropped, we broke our enterprise efforts into 3 distinct phases. 1, respond; 2, recover; and then kind of retool, which is the idea of what are we going to need over the horizon. And so the respond portion was kind of that first 90 days. And that's something that we're used to as a property and casualty company, responding to things that go bump in the night. And we had started to understand the pandemic in early January with our monitoring of the environment. Then recover, what we're going to need for the next 3 to 6 months. And then kind of this idea of retool was beyond 12 months out, and experience wove into all of that. But additionally, we put research in market. And so we're surveying our members every 2 weeks to get a sense of their tone, sentiment, outlook, and how the pandemic is impacting them. And that's allowing us to be more responsive. And over the duration of COVID, we've helped more than 1 million members with some type of forbearance, restructured payment plan, or delayed plan, which is, again, in tune and empathetic to what they're going through. And then we've also refunded over $1 billion of auto dividends and rebates back to our members because they're driving less. So some of this is just letting them know, we hear you, we understand what you're going through from a family perspective, and we're committed to helping you weather this storm.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that, respond, recover, retool, go to where the puck is going. I love this part about listening to self-correct every 2 weeks, some type of voice a member program so that you're doing it. You mentioned the NPS scores, tracking that on a continuous basis, feeding that up to the top. You also, everyone talked about empathy. What we're seeing in our client work, in our research, is also a very tight linkage between the customer or member experience and that of your employee and your partners. How are you working with your frontline workers and everybody in the organization to enable them to not only understand what the experience should be, but be in a position to deliver it? Because it's tough times for all of us. We're working on screens, and if we are a frontline worker and we actually have to be out and about, we're taking an undue kind of risk, if you will. I think about not undue, but a calculated risk. I think about a lot of your providers and where you're giving care. How are you bringing the employee into the equation to deliver that? You guys are leaders in customer experience, that leading experience. I'll start with you, Brett, because you got people who wear blue all the time.
Yeah. So another word that we use is constituents. And so when we go through our decision making, we try to think about balancing our decisions against our constituents, which consists of maybe providers that are employed by Humana, but also the broader provider community that we need to support that are on the front lines giving care. We think about our members and patients, and ultimately they're a constituent of us, and we need to balance their needs. And then thirdly, we think about our associates, and that's not in rank order. That's just the 1, 2, 3 that we try to think about. But I'll share a quote from Tim Huval, who's our Chief Administration Officer, which includes our HR organization. And the drumbeat that he's put into the organization is that the customer experience can't be better than the associate experience. And until we have our associates operating at the top of their license, feeling connected and bought into our mission and purpose, we won't achieve our ambitions for the customer experience we want. And so as we think about our constituents and our orientation, it really is about providing the support and back to the word empathy for our associates to then help translate to our members. And we've tried to do a number of things over this past year and helping with caregiving and helping with flexibility for time in and out of work, and all of those things that everybody's experienced in their day-to-day life as folks are dealt with childcare and aging parents and those things. And so it really is about, for us at least, if you want to create a great member experience, it starts with your associates, and they've got to know that they're a part of the decision-making process and that their needs are top of mind as well.
Got it. And Tony, because of the composition of your customer base, and I would say in no small part, the composition of your employee base being ex-military, how do you win the hearts and minds of them and train them to really serve your member constituents?
Yeah, one thing I would say, and I've worked at 10 different brands, I've never been at a brand where I would be willing to bet a paycheck that 99.9% of our employees could state our mission. And it's super important because everything we do kind of comes back to that idea of understanding the mission. We have what we call the best customers in the world. And what we really want to be sensitive to is that the impact of your finances when you're a military member, you may be deployed overseas to keep your head in the game and focus on what's important. The last thing you want is a military member worried about whether they're overdrawn on their bank account or something. So it really comes to the forefront. And again, we believe in kind of that service value chain, that if you start first with the employee, that they understand the mission and the importance that we play in a member's life, and then you emanate out from there, that you're going to get things right because they are the heart of the house and they deliver for us our service day in, day out.
That's great. So we talked a lot about empathy, and I'm going to ask one more question in a rapid fire way to y'all. So we're gonna have people who are listening to us and listening to your stories of success, how you navigated, how you're building alignment, how you're listening to your customers, how you're being intentional in the experience that you want to deliver and designing it, and then empowering the workforce and putting them in a position to be able to do that. What one piece of advice would you give to our listeners about how to stay the course, right? How not to lose heart? And, because it's tough work. Sometimes it's dramatic change to make a pivot, to change a channel or to change a policy or to cascade it through. So what would you give them from a perspective of advice to how to stay the course? We'll start with you, Alon.
Yeah, rapid fire, great question. It all starts and ends with us for the client. I think Sam Walton was the one who said the client is the one who can fire everybody from the janitor up to the CEO. So listen to your clients, and listening to your clients, we all serve millions of people across varied geographies and various points in people's lives. To be able to listen means to be able to collect data. And for us to turn that data into organized data, analyzed data, distributed data, and then the most important part of data is the ability to take action on data. I'll end my little rapid fire with actually a story about USAA. I was talking personally to a client yesterday, and I asked them, give me an example of the most empathetic moment you had with any brand out there. And they said, I've been a member at USAA forever. And about a year ago, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was about to move with my husband. I don't know how USAA knew that. Somehow they were listening, and they called and said, how can we help? That's called turning data into actionable data, being empathetic, and being there at a moment that we can help one of our clients or members or associates in their life.
That's great. And Brett, you've got a complex organization with lots of moving parts. How do you have that step of energy in your outlook?
Very simple. Prioritize and dedicate time to your front line, not up through the ranks and not through status reports. Personally, go and sit with people on the front line, listen to the member calls, go out, get into the home. If you want to understand how to make things better, go sit with the folks who actually do the work.
I think that's fantastic. I think that, I mean, there's some really sage counsel in that. And oftentimes people get so caught up in their pinnacle job, for lack of a better term, they don't get that true voice. Go sit in the contact center, go walk the floors, go listen to what's happening. It's great counsel. Guru, what would you encourage people to do?
I would encourage people to copy paste Brett and Ilan's answers because it's just so good. It was excellent. No, I think they just covered it so beautifully. I'll probably pivot a little on technology as well, right? Because at the scale at which many of our companies are beginning to operate, the word empathy becomes a very difficult one to deliver at the scale that we need to, because technology is an inherent part of that experience. So you started off the question by asking how you can inspire and empower people to stay the course, right? And it is not easy. In the beginning, when you start moving to digital channels, naturally there will be an ingrained resistance to this, because that's how people are not, they're used to doing things a certain way and you're changing the game on them in the middle. You need to stay the course, celebrate small wins, and commit to making sure that you're not using technology for the sake of using technology, but you're using it to better people's lives. So at the end of the day, technology doesn't change lives, people change lives. And you need to have the humility to understand it and respect it and use technology the way it should be used.
That's fantastic, Guru. And to you, Tony.
Yeah, two things. One, make it actionable. I think often when we go to measure satisfaction, our employees can't see themselves in the data or the outputs. So make the data actionable for everyone in the organization. And then two, competitively track how you're doing versus your competitors. If your score goes up a point, that's great. But if your competitor took a 10-point gap that you had and now has closed it to 2 or 3, that is no longer the advantage that you're probably seeking. And I think in today's world with Uber and Airbnb and all the different unique digital experiences that we have that are so simple, it's getting harder for us across all these different categories in the customer's mind to have a best in class, because the bar keeps getting raised, even if it's not in your industry. So that's what I would say: actionable and competitive.
I would add to the competitive word. I oftentimes use the word comparative, because we're all customers to different businesses. So you could, if you were USA, look at Allstate or State Farm, right? But the reality is we as consumers and customers show up with expectations from all the other experiences we have, and that's the benchmark, right? But it's also, I guess it's ensuring if in your positions, this is something that's not one and done. It is a continuous thing. And one of you mentioned early on, we have momentum, right? A representation of momentum over time is also a brand, because those interactions reinforce the brand. And if you get the momentum going in the right direction, right, then you continue to build that brand. You continue to build off those experiences, and your customer franchise really understands who you are and what you represent. You guys were fantastic. I really want to thank each of you. Brett, thank you for sharing the Humana story. Ilan, thank you for sharing your story. Guru, thank you for sharing the story from India and PayPal. And then Tony, thank you for sharing the USA story. All 4 of your companies are outstanding enterprises, and we are really privileged to have the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you on behalf of KPMG and Salesforce for taking time to talk to us today.
Thank you, Julio.
Thank you.
Pleasure.